kitchen thundered with chaos. Oil hissing, plates crashing, and voices rising into the dense, greasy air. Orders flew like missiles in every direction, but Kale threaded through it all, clutching a tray of 4 steaming plates, his shoes slipping dangerously on the slick floor. He caught himself just in time, heart racing. At table 5, a woman slammed her palm against the surface, her face flushed with frustration. "I've been waiting 40 minutes. Does anyone even work here?" Her words sliced through the noise. Kale rushed over, his breath caught in his chest, sweat beading at his brow. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll get it right away." Behind the bar, unnoticed in a faded black t-shirt, a man wiped glasses calmly. That man was Jackson Vale, the CEO of RUS Group, hidden in plain sight, camouflaged by time and silence. No one recognized him. No one even looked. From the office, Derek, the manager, barked sharply, "If you can't keep up, Kale, don't bother showing up tomorrow." Jackson's gaze followed the boy. They didn't know who he was, but he knew who they were, or rather, who they had become. A letter had arrived earlier. No return address, just a folded piece of paper slipped into the office mail. Its words weren't angry, just weary. We waited an hour. The food was cold. The manager walked away mid-sentence. "I don't want a refund. I want to believe your company still cares." Jackson read the letter once. Then again. Then again. It lingered, not because of outrage, but disappointment. That kind of sorrow was quieter, but it dug deeper. He turned to the tall windows of his office, where the skyline rose like monuments to ambition. It had been years since he stepped inside one of their restaurants without a camera crew, a polished name tag, or a speech to give. He opened a drawer, fingers brushing over an old black tee with the RUS logo. He laid it on the desk carefully. If I really wanted to know the truth, I had to feel it, not observe it. The company had started in a small diner in Ohio. His father ran it with a tired apron and 2 ironclad rules: keep it honest and keep it human. Jackson had scrubbed floors and cleared plates long before he wore a suit. But now there were 47 locations. Conversations were replaced by spreadsheets. Faces became data. Growth had built distance, and distance had made forgetting easy. I used to know their names, Jackson thought, their birthdays, their stories. Now I only see shifts on a dashboard. That's not leadership. That's oversight disguised as care. By 6 o'clock, the dining room was a storm. Tables overflowed with dishes. The baby in the window booth cried for the second time. No napkins, no servers. The hostess stand sat abandoned. A teenage girl darted between tables, pouring drinks, resetting settings. Alone, in the kitchen, orders backed up. Voices barked for fries that never came. A man near the bar raised his hand, frustrated. "We've been here 20 minutes, what's going on?" Another server dropped a fork and kicked it under the counter rather than pick it up. Her hands trembled, her face pale. Jackson watched it unfold. 3 hours in. No break, no structure, no support. This wasn't a bad night. This was survival masked as service. Kale moved like a ghost in a storm. Small for 16, his name tag hung sideways on his apron. Sweat soaked through his collar. He balanced 3 plates on one arm, a 4th teetering in his fingers. His shoes squeaked as he dodged a rogue cart. Kale's customer asked for napkins. Another signaled for their bill. Kale nodded at both. Didn't stop for either. Having had 4 bottles of wine, though, the 2 were totally passed out by 8. As he passed Jackson at the bar, eyes locked forward. Jackson stepped aside and held the door to the kitchen. Kale mumbled, "Thanks," disappearing into the haze beyond. He'd been running non-stop, no breaks, no coverage, just noise, and he was still just a kid. When he came back out, arms full again, his pace was faster, but his eyes had dimmed. Jackson moved beside him and handed him a clean glass without saying much. "You okay, kid?" Kale blinked, startled. No one had asked him that all night. He offered a tired, automatic smile. "I'm good, just short-staffed." "I'm used to it." He turned, weaving back into the crowd. But Jackson saw it. The smile didn't reach his eyes. His hands still trembled. Around them, the clatter didn't pause. Plates crashed, voices rose, fryers hissed. But in Jackson's mind, for a moment, it all fell silent. No 16-year-old should have to be used to this. At table 9, Kale placed a plate down. The woman frowned. "This isn't mine. I asked for no onions." Before Kale could respond, Derek stormed over, Bluetooth in his ear, iced coffee in hand. "You kidding me, Co? I told you double-check the tickets. How hard is that?" Kale opened his mouth, but Derek cut him off. "Don't talk. Fix it. Now." The room hushed. A couple shifted uncomfortably. Kale nodded, lifted the plate, and walked back to the kitchen. Quiet. The mistake wasn't his. Jackson had seen the ticket himself. It was printed wrong. But in some restaurants, corrections are silent. Only shame is loud. By the drink station, Jackson quietly stacked glasses. A soft voice whispered beside him, "You're new, right?" He turned. A young server, small frame, weary eyes. Her name tag read Junie. She kept her gaze low as she worked the soda machine. "If you need a break," she whispered, "don't ask. Just go quiet. Don't let Derek see." Jackson frowned. "Why?" She glanced over her shoulder. "Ask, and your hours get cut next week. That's how it works here." She didn't wait for his reply, just handed off 2 drinks and vanished into the din. Jackson stood frozen, gripping the counter. When fear runs the floor, kindness disappears, and everyone learns to speak in whispers. Later, Kale walked home, alone. No ride, no bus, just sneakers hitting cracked concrete under flickering streetlights. A passing car sprayed cold water by the curb. He didn't flinch. At the apartment, the kitchen light was off. A note on the counter, "Overnight shift. Don't wait up, Mom." He boiled water, dropped in instant noodles, still in uniform, still sweating. No music, no phone, just silence. He ate at the counter, eyes half closed, then rinsed his bowl, placed it in the sink and collapsed on the couch, shoes still on. Miles away, Jackson sat in a motel room, that same letter in his hands. "I thought I was here to fix a complaint," he thought. "But this isn't about one bad night. It's about a system rotting from the inside." Jackson gave a subtle nod and stepped quietly back out, his movements blending with the noise that had only grown more chaotic. Kale opened the bar slowly, his hands moving in practiced silence, chipping away at the evening's demands, one plate, one breath at a time. Outside, the restaurant had begun to hum with pressure. The kind of hum you feel in your teeth. Sometimes help doesn't speak, it doesn't announce itself, it just notices and shows up anyway. By 5:30, the dinner rush crashed in like a wave. Families, couples, delivery drivers lining up at the counter. One server had called out sick. Another simply didn't show. That left Kale with 6 tables, maybe more. He didn't count. He couldn't afford to. He moved on instinct, skipping over breath and comfort to keep up. Water glasses here, menus there, constant, breathless apologies. A toddler spilled apple juice across the tile. Kale dropped to his knees, cleaning it swiftly, his name tag dipping into the mess. He barely had time to stand before grabbing a tray from the counter, already growing cold. 3 times he passed the drink station, never pausing to fill his own empty cup. At table 11, a man squinted and asked, "Are you the only one working this whole side?" Kale gave a thin smile. "Just for tonight." Nearby, Jackson wiped down a booth, eyes following every step. Kale wasn't flawless, far from it. But he was present. He showed up in every moment with quiet consistency, moving like a current beneath the surface. Not seen, not praised, but necessary. At table 5, the woman from earlier pushed her plate forward, irritation deepening in her voice. "This is the second time I asked for no cheese." Kale blinked, glanced down at the dish, then back at her with an apologetic tone laced in weariness. "I'm so sorry. I'll fix it right away." She sighed, impatient. "Just don't mess it up again." He nodded, took the plate, and turned. No explanation, no protest. Jackson stood just feet away, cloth in hand. He had seen the ticket. It was wrong from the beginning. Kale hadn't entered it, he only delivered it. But still, Kale carried the blame like it was stitched into his apron. Jackson's grip tightened, but he didn't speak. Not yet. Ali disappeared into the kitchen, but before he could even push through the swinging door, another table waved him down. When no one takes responsibility, it always falls on the shoulders of the one too tired to argue. Returning with the corrected plate, Kale set it down gently, voice barely above the din. "Sorry again for the mix-up." But before the guest could even respond, Derek appeared, sharp, loud, pointed. "Stop saying sorry," he barked, his voice piercing the noise. "If they ordered wrong, that's on them." Kale froze. Derek didn't care. "You're not here to take blame. You're here to move food." Then he walked away, sipping his coffee like nothing had happened. The guest stared, wide-eyed. Kale gave a tiny nod and stepped back. Jackson saw it all. He still didn't intervene, but his jaw was clenched now, his gaze narrowed. He knew. Humility isn't weakness, but to men like Derek, it's a flaw, something to be stomped out. Kale poured water at table 3, his eyes heavy, his hands shaking. The woman in her 60s watched him quietly for a moment before leaning toward Jackson. "Why is that kid doing everything?" Jackson didn't answer. Her gaze returned to Kale. "He's just a boy. He looks exhausted. Where's the manager?" Kale moved on before she could say more. One table needed napkins, another flagged him down for their check. He didn't pause, just kept going. Jackson stood still, dish towel in hand. "This isn't how a place should run," the woman said, softer now. He met her eyes. "No, ma'am, it isn't. When even strangers can see what leadership chooses to ignore, you realize the problem isn't new. It's just been left to fester." Kale balanced a tray of drinks with one hand, menus tucked beneath his arm. Table 7 needed waters. Table 4 had asked for ketchup. A child at table 9 dropped a spoon. He handled all of it. Quick steps, quiet words, a rhythm of exhaustion. He didn't waste a single motion, and no one helped, because no one was free to. He refilled coffee, wiped a spill, took an order, cleared 2 plates, returned with ketchup. Never sitting, never resting. His breath grew heavier, but his face remained calm, his focus surgical. Jackson trailed a few steps behind, clearing what he could, observing, bearing witness. Sometimes, when no one shows up, a kid becomes the entire system. Not because he should, because no one else will. From the kitchen, Theo stumbled out, pale and drenched in sweat. He leaned against the wall near the dish pit, clutching his chest. "I just need 5 minutes," he said, voice frayed. Derek barely looked up from his phone. "You get a break when the rush is over, not before." Theo didn't argue, just nodded and turned back toward the heat, apron clinging to his spine. Jackson watched from the hallway, his hands curled slightly into fists. Theo reached for a tray, fingers trembling. A plate nearly slipped. No one flinched. No one reacted. Here, there was no room for weakness, no space for basic needs. Even asking to breathe was a gamble. Theo vanished into the steam, and Jackson followed. He didn't speak, just rolled up his sleeves and grabbed a rack stacked high with plates. The dish pit smelled of heat and detergent, silverware tangled in gray water. Jackson scrubbed, rinsed, loaded. He didn't speak, just rinsed, spray, scrub, rinse, repeat. No fanfare, no speech, no announcement. The steam fogged his glasses, the water stung his skin. He didn't stop. No one noticed right away, and that was okay. Because real leadership doesn't walk in with titles, it shows up in silence when no one else will. Then came the crash. Junie's tray hit the floor, glass shattered, water spilled out like a wave. She froze, face pale, lips parted in shock. Derek spun. "You serious right now? Clean it up. You think we have time for this?" His voice ripped through the dining room. A child flinched. Guests turned. Junie dropped to her knees, hands fumbling for napkins. Her hands shook. Kale appeared beside her. He didn't speak, just knelt and started cleaning. "She's got a lot of tables tonight," he said quietly. Dirk scoffed. "Maybe she's not cut out for this." Kale kept wiping, jaw set tight. At the edge of the kitchen, Jackson stood soaked from the dish pit, watching everything. Kindness doesn't fix broken systems, but it reminds people they aren't broken too. Later, they stood behind the drink station, just for a breath. Kale was refilling sodas, movements automatic. Jackson stepped closer, voice low. "If someone higher up saw all this, what would you want them to know?" Kale paused. A cup overflowed slightly. He didn't notice. He looked up, eyes tired but clear. "That we're not lazy," he said, his voice steady. He grabbed a lid, wiped the spill. "People think we don't care, but we do. We're just tired. And no one helps." Jackson didn't respond, just gave a single, slow nod. It was enough. Kale turned back to the floor, slipping seamlessly into the rhythm he'd grown used to. Another table, another smile, another apology. He didn't ask for sympathy. None of them did. All they wanted was to be seen, clearly, truthfully, without being judged. At table 8, a group had begun watching. They weren't being nosy, just curious, observing. One man sipped his drink and muttered, "He hasn't stopped moving, not once." Other added, "Doesn't even take a breath." A woman leaned in closer, eyes narrowing as she followed Kale's exhausted path across the floor. "He's just a kid. And he's doing everything." Kale passed by their table, his smile still intact but dimmed, tray balanced with practiced grace. His shirt was damp with sweat. Not that he noticed anymore. He headed toward yet another refill, another cleanup, another apology. Someone whispered, "Where's the manager?" No one answered. At the end of the service line, Jackson was stacking cups, listening, always listening. His hands didn't stop, but his expression had shifted. The anger wasn't loud, but it was there now. The truth didn't need a microphone. It traveled table to table like a ripple, until silence could no longer contain it. When Kale finally clocked out for the night, Derek was waiting by the staff hallway. "Tomorrow, double shift, noon to close." Kale hesitated. "I have class until 2. Derek didn't blink. "Then run from class? Or don't bother coming in?" Kale didn't protest, just lowered his eyes. The fight in him wasn't gone, it was just buried, replaced by the fear of a missed paycheck. Jackson was just around the corner, drying his hands. He'd heard everything. Kale lingered near the clock, hand resting on it, not angry, just emptied, worn down to silence. Because sometimes power doesn't scream, it hangs heavy and invisible above the kid who can't afford to lose what little he has. He moved back through the dining room, clearing plates one by one, slower now, but still with care. Napkins were straightened, menus stacked, every corner of every table wiped with quiet dignity. A yawn rose up in his throat. He buried it. Keep going. Across the room, Jackson leaned against the service counter, watching. Not just with his eyes, with something deeper. His jaw was tight, one hand clenched at his side. Kale reached for a glass. It slipped slightly, but he caught it, then kept going, like always. Because dignity doesn't fade with fatigue, it survives, even when no one rewards it. Outside, the back door creaked open as Jackson stepped into the night. The air was cooler than he remembered. He let it hit him, finally exhaling after what felt like days. He walked a few steps into the empty parking lot, then turned to face the building. The restaurant's sign glowed above the entrance. Bright, corporate, clean. But behind that glow was exhaustion, fear, silence. This place bore his name. It carried his father's values. It was meant to be a promise. And inside, a 16-year-old was being broken under the weight of it. Jackson stared at the sign for a long time. How long have I let this happen? How far have I drifted from the leader I promised I'd be? Back inside, table 12 had run out of patience. The woman at the center pushed her plate away for the third time. No onions, she snapped. How hard is that? Her husband leaned forward. We want to speak to a manager now. Kale froze, tray in hand. His voice was barely a whisper. Nia, get someone. He turned toward the kitchen, shoulders drawn up tight, every step like walking a tightrope. Nearby customers glanced over, eyebrows raised, lips muttering. Jackson, just 2 tables away, had already heard every word. He didn't move yet, not until he saw Kale pause, caught between duty and dread. He placed the final plate on a tray, stood tall, and straightened his back. Every system breaks somewhere. Tonight, it broke at table 12. Derek finally appeared, Bluetooth in his ear, phone in hand. He didn't apologize. Didn't even smile, just walked up to the table like they were a problem, not guests. We've sent this back 3 times, the woman said, standing. We've been more than patient. Derek shrugged. We're short-staffed. It's Friday. What do you want me to do? Her husband leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Basic respect would be a start. Derek smirked. You got food, didn't you? People make mistakes. Be glad anyone's here at all. The woman's voice went colder, slower. I want your name. Right now. He pointed lazily to the receipt. It's printed. Kale stood a few steps away, silent, face down. Jackson moved closer, his eyes locked on Derek. Because when the person in charge stops caring, it poisons everything underneath them. Before the woman could speak again, Jackson stepped forward. Steady, I'll handle this, he said. Derek didn't even look up. Since when do busboys take charge? Jackson didn't blink. I'm Jackson Vale, CEO of our U.S. group. The entire room fell into stunned silence. Derek looked up slowly, his face draining pale. You're kidding. Jackson shook his head. No. But you've been kidding yourself, thinking this was leadership. He paused, letting that truth settle. You're done here, effective immediately. Derek opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The receipt still sat untouched on the table. Kale stood frozen near the drink station. Junie dropped a spoon. Theo stopped mid-step. Everything stopped. Because real power doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It simply decides when enough is enough. The restaurant felt completely still. No clatter, no chatter. Even the kitchen quieted. Customers turned in their seats, eyes following Jackson as he stepped up to table 12. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't gesture wildly. Just bowed his head slightly. "I'm truly sorry," he said. "This is not how we treat guests or people." The woman blinked. Her anger softened, just enough to be human again. "If you're willing to come back next week," Jackson added, "your meal will be on us, and I'll make sure it's done right." She paused, then slowly nodded. "We'll think about it." Jackson nodded back. Then he turned to face the room. Dignity starts with ownership, and sometimes the quietest apology is louder than any excuse. The staff stood in silence, Junie near the soda machine, eyes glassy, Tio leaning against the expo line, breath held. Kale, motionless by the ice bin. Jackson walked toward him. No rush, no performance. He stopped at his side. "Your shift's over. Go home, get some rest." Kale didn't respond at first. "You serious?" Jackson nodded. "We'll talk tomorrow, but tonight, you're done." Kale looked down at the tray in his hands. Slowly, carefully, he set it on the counter. He turned, walked away, one step at a time, not sure if it was real, but hoping. Sometimes the kindest thing a leader can say is, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." The next morning, the restaurant stayed dark. No aprons, no orders. Just the team, gathered near the bar in silence. Jackson stood before them. No name tag, no title, just presence. "I didn't come here to observe," he said. "I came to understand what we broke." He looked across the room, at Junie, at Theo, at the line cook with tired eyes, at the new host who hadn't spoken once all week. "And I did." He let that truth settle into the air, then added, calm but firm, "Starting today, things change, not someday, now." No one clapped, no one cheered. They didn't need to. Because for the first time, someone wasn't talking at them, they were speaking to them. Not to command, not to placate, but to connect. And that kind of honesty doesn't need applause. It needs presence. Trust doesn't come from speeches. It's built when someone shows up, stays when it's uncomfortable, and listens like they mean it. Later that day, Kale sat across from Jackson in the back booth. No apron, no tray. Just a soda sweating on the table in front of him, untouched. He looked smaller without the weight of service, yet the tiredness hadn't left his eyes. Jackson slid a folder across the table. "Operations training program," he said simply. "If you're interested, it's yours. Full scholarship." Kale stared at it, unsure whether to reach for it or push it back. "I'm just a server." "No," Jackson said firmly. "You're a leader. You've already been doing the work. Now let's give you the tools." Kale's fingers brushed the folder. His lips trembled, half smile, half on the edge of something deeper. "In your hours, we're fixing that too. School first, always." Kale nodded slowly, his eyes on the edge of the table. He didn't say thank you, not out loud, but his gaze did. Support isn't just lifting someone out of the fire, it's showing them they belong somewhere higher, somewhere they can finally breathe. In the prep area, Jackson stood beside Mira, her hands still damp from the sink, towel clenched nervously. "I called you over for a reason," he said. She looked confused. "You've been holding this place together without the title, without the credit." Mira shook her head. "I just did what I could." "And that's what leaders do," Jackson said, smiling. "Effective immediately, you're the new general manager." Her breath caught. "I've never run a full store." "You already have." he replied softly. Now, you have the authority to match. Word spread fast. Junie smiled through tears. Theo nodded quietly from the grill. Relief replaced tension. 2 more towers replaced the fires and the light. Now, they arrested. It wasn't because someone new was in charge. It was because someone good was. Leadership isn't proven in titles. It's earned in quiet, unwavering consistency. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled into the rear lot. Tanya from HR stepped out, clipboard in hand. Inside, Jackson stood at the counter. No suit, no tie, just his sleeves rolled up and purpose in his eyes. "We're not here for a show," he told her. "We're here to listen. For real this time." Tanya nodded. "We'll start with this location. Full audit. Scheduling, pay records, complaint logs." Jackson added, "And I want interviews. 1 by 1. Off the clock. Paid. No exceptions." Staff murmured when Tanya set up in the break room. 1 by 1, names were called. No pressure. No managers hovering. Just space. Honest and safe. Junie was the first to step in. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. When silence becomes survival, change begins by asking, and actually staying for the answer. The flyer went up on the bulletin board. Anonymous reporting now open. No repercussions. Ever. Beside it, a QR code. A locked box. A quiet message. "We're finally listening." That night, Tanya checked the inbox. It was already filling. Some stories were short. Others ran pages long. One said, "I lost hours for saying no." Another, "My tips went missing." In one, barely a sentence, "I cried in the freezer." Twice. The stories weren't loud, but they were true. By the end of the night, over 24 voices had surfaced, some from last week, some from last year. Kale stared at the flyer, then at Jackson. "You think it'll matter?" Jackson didn't hesitate. "It already does. People don't speak when they're safe, they speak when they feel finally heard." Calls went out, messages sent, worded with care. "Hi, this is Russ Management. We like to talk, if you're open to it." 1 by 1, former staff returned, not to apply, but to be heard. A barista who'd quit after being yelled at in front of a full line. A dishwasher who was never paid for overtime. A hostess who was scheduled during exams, even after she pleaded not to be. In the break room, Tanya listened. Jackson sat nearby, not talking, just present. "We're not asking you to come back," Tanya said gently. "We're asking, what did we miss?" Some declined. Some cried. Some stayed. One nodded through tears. "Thank you for asking." "No one ever did." Repair doesn't begin with apology, it starts with accountability, and sometimes just an open chair. The dinner shift opened like always, but something was different. The kitchen moved in rhythm. Orders came through clean, no shouting, no panic. Theo called out dishes. Dylan plated with calm precision. Junie passed a full tray to Lane, who carried it with confidence. Ildor 3 tables, laughing with a kid, checking on an elderly couple. No one rushed, but nothing fell behind. The family at booth 6 got their food hot. The dad gave a thumbs up. Near the pass, Mira took notes, then stepped in to help Expo. She didn't command, she joined. That's what real leadership looks like. Jackson watched from the corner, arms folded. For once, he wasn't needed. And that was the point. Change doesn't shout, it shows up quietly, in the breath between chaos and the calm of things finally working. Table 7. A young family. A toddler with sticky fingers and a cup of melting ice cream. Off dropped off drinks, turned to help another table. Then, thud a sharp cry. The cup hit the floor. Ice cream everywhere. The boy sobbed. His mom panicked. Trotter command. Kale walked back, knelt gently, his voice calm. Hey, it's okay. It happens to the best of us. He grabbed a new cup, bigger scoop, placed it on the table. On the house, he said with a wink. Just don't drop this one, okay? The boy blinked, sniffled, then smiled. His mom mouthed, thank you. Across the room, Jackson watched. You don't need a title to lead. Just steady hands and a heart that doesn't flinch when things fall. That night, the lights dimmed. Chairs flipped. The restaurant exhaled. Kale sat in the corner booth with Jackson, still in uniform, still tired, but something had shifted. His eyes held something steadier. They shared a soda. No rolls, just words. Jackson leaned in. I was wrong. I thought silence kept things steady. But it doesn't. You can make mistakes, he said, but you can't stay quiet. Kale looked down at his hands. Young, calloused, then looked up. I'm just a kid. Jackson shook his head. You may be small, Kale, but you're not invisible. A pause, just the hum of the fridge behind them. Kale smiled, half surprise, half relief. You saw me. I had to, Jackson said. You were the only one still standing. Sometimes leadership isn't about power. It's about finally seeing who's carried the weight. The door creaked open. Kale stepped out into the night, backpack over one shoulder, hoodie half-zipped. What? His stride wasn't rushed, wasn't heavy, just steady. The air was cool. The sidewalk still held the warmth of the day. Behind him, the restaurant glowed softer than before. Above the door, a clean sign caught the light. We build people first, Russ Group. Kale glanced back, just once, then kept walking. He didn't smile, but his shoulders were lighter, in steps, grounded. If you've ever felt what Kale felt, if you've ever worked, tired, unseen, unheard, comment below. I know that feeling, because stories like his, they're more common than we think. Thank you for staying with us until the end.